someone mentions crepe myrtle to you, do you immediately think of the South and how it represents the full flamboyant beauty of the blossoms of the crepe myrtle? But are you aware that it's actually an Asian tree? It will sucker out from the bottom. It has many wonderful attributes in our garden. It does have a few things that we might need to be cautious of, and I learned, shall I say, by experience that this beautiful crepe myrtle tree in my garden right here will produce many little babies, shall I say, whether they come from seed or they actually come from the roots that run very shallowly under the ground. One of the things that does make the crepe myrtle so beautiful is proper pruning. Now, pruning for you may be different than it is pruning for me. When I prune, I want mine to expose so that I can see through the tree rather than pruning it down to a height that I can see over it. If you have a crepe myrtle that you feel that is not in the right location and you can't do it by the proper pruning method, they're very easily moved. So I want to go with you now into some steps and different tools that we can use in our garden to achieve the proper pruning for our crepe myrtle tree. Well, it's time to get my gloves on now and go to work because I have lots to do. Okay, let's look at my crepe myrtle, and you're gonna see evidence of how I have pruned on it now for several years. One of the things that I see growing now, that's going to happen every year, you are going to have new shoots to come out along the branches. And so we want to remove these every year in order to expose the actual trunks of the crepe myrtle that we want to leave. So what I'm talking about is going to be, first of all, we'll probably remove all of this branch, but we're going to just go in and begin trimming down. See how these are growing from right here? Now then, when you're thinking about proper pruning, because this is a tree, you can use the same techniques if you know how to prune a tree. And you do know that on trees, they have a very unique feature. There's something that's called a branch collar. And let's look and find us one. Right here, I see the branch collar. You see, and typically we want to prune about 1/4 of an inch from that. And by doing it at the right distance, inside of this collar right here, there are hormones, and it begins to grow and scar over the wound that you make, whether it's crepe myrtle or a tree, and it will heal over. If you cut it too long, as probably I have here, I do cut from this for my flowers to put in the home, so I don't do it correctly all the time. But let's just say right here, we're going to cut this 1/4 of an inch away on that slant. And that may not be exactly 1/4 of an inch, but when you go too far out, it leaves something that's going to die off and go into the inside of this branch collar, and it leaves room for disease and insects to get in. So at the right distance from that branch collar, you're going to have a natural healing process take place. Here's a good example of how this healing process has happened. And from time to time, you will have these suckers begin, so we want to take that out. But let's look at another problem that we have inside our crepe myrtle when we prune. We leave what's called a knuckling. This is a knuckling going on right here. See all these different pieces of branches going out right here? But really, what we need to do is, again, go in and take them to the very stem of the tree. You know that pruning crepe myrtles should happen before or just as the leaves are emerging. Another thing to consider about pruning your crepe myrtles, there are those who think that you have to prune them in order to make them bloom. This is absolutely not true. Nothing that you do about removing the spent dead bloom pods will make them bloom better. So as I go through my pruning process, what I want to have eventually when I'm finished, I want to expose those beautiful shiny barks that will reflect sun in the wintertime as it shines in on them, and leaves me with a tree that I can see through and not have to look over. It's time to work at the base of this plant, so let's get another set of pruners. The longer handled ones will give me ease to get right under here, and you're gonna see what I have going on right down here. I have a lot of new sprouts, and I've got to take all of these out, and actually I'm gonna remove them partially without going in to do the very last pruning so that I can just get in there to it. See right over here? But when I'm finished, I'll have exposed all of the better looking bark. This will give it more growing for the blooms and for the rest of those remaining trunks. But once you've done this, what you've created also is you have a background for other perennials to grow underneath it. It'll create more beauty from whether it's winter interest or actually for any beauty that you want in your garden. The Asian tree known as the crepe myrtle is a wonderful addition to your garden.